Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Highland Mapping Vendor Theater. Our topic will be ArcGIS Pro, the Highland Mapping Way. My name is Kevin Jameson, and I specialize in Next Generation 911. While working on many Next Generation 911 projects, I have found that addressing is a great way to ease into implementing ArcGIS Pro. I'm going to talk to you about our proprietary addressing and centerline maintenance tools and how they can help you start using Pro within your organization. And also, if you have questions as we go along with the presentation, please put them in the chat and I will get to as many of them at the end of the presentation as I possibly can. Why start a Pro implementation with addressing? Right now, all jurisdictions are dealing with trying to achieve I3 compliance with AT&T. This is a cumbersome thing if you are using a data model that doesn't account for all mandatory fields. Historically, desktop addressing tools I have used at least have dealt with E911 needs. NextGen is a whole new ballgame. Our addressing tools account for all NextGen GIS data requirements. They also offer the ability to work within a full-blown NextGen data model. In this regard, our tools offer a great starting place for our clients to begin maintaining an I3 status. Since everything you need to edit addresses and centerlines with is concentrated into one tab, addressing offers a more painless way to start using Pro. I will also mention that Esri will be retiring ArcGIS Desktop soon. I mean, not to scare anyone, but this may be a good opportunity to start picking up Pro and learning about it. A workflow involving an older E911 data model can be time-consuming. If you edit the way that you always have, you probably have to export your legacy data out to a next-gen model. Then you have to fill in all of the required mandatory fields on top of that. I'm sure that there are many of you doing this by hand as well. Finally, you have to package the upload for Data Hub and upload it. On the other hand, if you are editing the data directly in a Pro model using the NextGen GIS model, you can export the data directly from your project and upload it. If you have to make changes to fix critical errors, you can upload again by simply exporting the changes right out of Pro into your file geodatabase or your shapefile folder. And I can tell you from a lot of experience that this has saved me a ton of time. Some of the features of the Highland Mapping addressing tools are simple address assignment. All required NextGen fields are automatically populated, including the global unique ID field. You have the ability to address the actual location of the driveway. If you need to shoehorn in a house number that isn't calculating to fit older addresses, that can easily be done. Overlays and field mappings from street features and polygons can be used to populate fields within the address points. The second part of our addressing package deals with centerline editing. All editing tools needed to add a new centerline are found in one tab, and there is no jumping tab to tab to find what you need to work. Street names are drawn from a master street table. This eliminates entering the data more than once and cuts down on human error. Assigning address ranges to a new road is done with a simple menu. A similar tool is used to assign the new contiguous ranges at a freshly broken intersection. If you need to fudge a range at an intersection to match addresses already assigned, you can input your own ranges as needed. And finally, if you have to rename a road, the tools will allow you to change the road name on the centerline segment. When you do this, the road names on the associated address points change automatically. The third component to our system is the master street name table. This table is produced by producing a list of road names from existing GIS centerlines. Having a table like this ensures that road naming remains standardized in GIS. This table can also become the authoritative road naming list for a jurisdiction. Road names can be marked as active, pending, or retired within the list. Only active road names are available to mappers to use on a new road. New names are added through a simple tool. Streets and address points are linked together using related fields. In other systems, address points, center lines, and approved road names can exist exclusive from one another. Our system relates both address points and center lines back to the master street name table so that naming remains consistent. Address points and streets are also related so that if a street name changes, both the address point and the street can be updated without having to edit each individual address point. The Highland mapping address tools can be implemented in ArcGIS Pro with the data stored either in a file geodatabase or an enterprise geodatabase. In my demo today, I will be using a file geodatabase so that you can see that enterprise isn't required to make this possible. We also use a comprehensive addressing system that includes a complete Pro Tools implementation plus a web-based system that allows non-GIS personnel responsible for approving road names to enter, mark status on, and keep record of road naming. This web portal feeds directly back into the GIS so that approved roads can be mapped immediately. It can also be used with a CAD vendor's cooperation to produce and populate an MSAG directly from the GIS. We even have one client who uses this system to send updates to the phone company automatically. Included with our tools is a complete health check of address points and center lines. Any errors found will be reported back to the client and coaching will be given on how to correct them. We offer complete data cleanup as well as an additional service. Legacy data is migrated into a next-gen model with all fields needed to achieve I3 compliance. With the additional cleanup, however, the data is delivered I3 compliant. Tools are set up and tested in the client environment. And finally, automated processes are set up to feed downstream applications such as CAD and CAMA packages. So with that little rundown, let's take a look at Pro and take a look at how the address tool works. So this is ArcGIS Pro, and as you can see, I have my 911 editing tab up, and this contains all of the tools that you're going to need to add center lines and add addresses. So let's start by assigning a new road name. We're going to go to the master street list, or excuse me, group, and we're going to hit add. And this will open up an attribute dialog box. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down to my street name column, which is the next gen version of the street name, and I'm going to add a road name. And if you notice, when I add that road name, the pieces of it, the full name column auto-populates. And let's do the same for the legacy name. And this is what we currently use with the old system. And I'm going to pull down and choose my type. But since you see that acres isn't a valid choice, we simply type it into the full name field. Well, excuse me, the street name field, which would be the proper way to do it with NextGen. And if you notice, as soon as I hit enter, the full legacy name also populates. So the last thing I'm going to do with this is set this road name active so that we have it as a valid choice with a new road. And then I'm going to save my edits. Let's put this over to the side for now. So now I want to add my geometry. So the one thing that really hasn't changed very much from desktop inside Pro is the create button. And it still looks the same. It still has the templates in there that you would use. And so we simply click road center lines to add the new road. And I'm going to let it pop to the edge so that I know that I have a clean intersection. And I will also mention that this will work in a topology as well in the context of Pro. So I'm going to start drawing my center line. And once I'm done, I'm simply going to go down to the menu below and click Finish. And there we have our geometry. So next we want to get a road name on that. So I'm going to go grab my Assign tool and open up the dialog box that allows me to search the master street name table for the name I want to use. So let's use the name I just pulled in. So I simply highlight the name that I want and hit Apply. And the new name writes over to the attributes. And if we open up the attribute table and take a look at it, both the next gen naming elements and also the legacy elements are filled in. And as if we go on over through the list, you'll also see that your unique global ID for Nina also auto-populates. So you kill a lot of birds with one stone just by adding a road name. So one thing that we do have to do with this, however, is make sure that the incorporated municipalities have something in there because they are mandatory fields. And also, we need to make sure that the MSAG communities have something in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. Okay, the next thing we want to do is add a road range. So this is accomplished by using on the new road by using the Calculate Range tool. So I'm simply going to click this button. This county addresses within 10.56 feet between addresses. So I'm going to use that parameter to calculate. So I'm going to hit Calculate, get my new top ranges. And once I hit Save Range, that actually writes the new ranges to the attributes. So just like that, you put in a brand new road. So let's save our work. So to me, always the most tedious part of all of this is making sure that I have contiguous address ranges on my intersections. So let's make the intersection on the road. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the road that I want to split. Let my snapping pop to the endpoint of the new segment and split the road. So the next thing I want to do is go into the context menu of the Calculate Range tool and choose Centerline Editing. What this is going to let me do is rearrange existing roads at an intersection. So I'll accomplish this by selecting the road that I want to rearrange. I'll do a Calculate Range and save to write it to the attributes. The next thing I want to do is copy the new range. Come over here and paste it. And where needed, I may need to recalculate that top range too, if this is a major construction. So let's recalculate the top range. And then once we're done with that, we'll simply hit Save to write the new attributes in, and we'll save our work. And just like that, we've added a new road. Now, in my day-to-day workflow, it only takes me a few minutes to add a new road. When you get used to how the tools flow and how they work, it's super easy. But here's the gravy part. This is what we're all going to do the most. So I'm going to add some addresses. So we'll add a couple of new addresses. And if you notice, the community automatically pulled in. And what's happening with that is I have a relationship set up between my address points and my road center line so that when I add the new addresses in, it automatically pulls the community in depending on what side of the road you're on. Past that, adding an address is super easy. All I'm going to do is select both my address point and the road off of which it will be addressed. I'm going to grab the addressing tool. And once I have these little crosshairs, I'm going to tell Pro where the driveway is. So we're going to put the driveway right here. And that's all there is to it. We'll open the attributes and take a look at what we have. So if you notice, all of your next gen requirements are fulfilled. All of the road naming is there, both legacy and next gen. Your MSAG community is automatically populated. And I will say, if you have postal communities, ESNs, or anything else, those can be wired up just the same way to come in automatically. So if we keep scrolling down, your XY coordinates are in for state plane. Latin long is there for Latin long. And all of the other required next gen fields are there. And one thing I will point out and reemphasize as well is that every time you assign an address or draw a road center line in, you are getting a unique ID on that feature. So you will never get barked at again about overlapping IDs within the next gen data hub submissions. So a problem we all encounter from time to time is that you may have an address that you need to fit in between two old addresses that doesn't exactly calculate right. And we can do that here. If we come up to the addressing tools again and hit calculate manual address, that will allow us to input an address by hand. So if we want to call this address 150 Bruce Dickinson Acres, we input it and everything comes in. And the reason you got the message about the no update was performed was that all that means is that there was already a community on the address point, and and Pro didn't need to rewrite that. So what happens if you get a new overlay in that you would like to use in order to populate your address points? Adding those are super simple. All we have to do is go into the HM SSAP overlays table and do an edit. So let's say that I want to add a fire district in from my fire district layer within my table of contents. This is where I would do it. And one thing to bear in mind is that the tool is always looking for the name that's in the table of contents. And this is irregardless of what source you're using. You could have different data on different sources, but as long as it's named what the tool is looking for in table of contents, it's always going to work. So let's add a fire district layer. And I'm not going to talk while I'm doing this. I'll explain what I'm doing afterwards, but I'm like most men and can't chew gum and walk at the same time. Okay, so what I just did was my source layer is my fire district layer in the table of contents. That's where I'm pulling the data from. Excuse me. The target layer is my site structure address points, which are my address points. The overlay type auto-populates, and I would recommend leaving that alone. The source field of name is what I'm pulling from in the fire district layer. And finally, the target field name is where I want to throw the fire district. So once that table is done, I'm going to hit save. So now, if I want to update the fire district on this address point, all I have to do is hit overlays, and the new fire district writes right in from the polygon overlay. Additionally, within the tool, We have a pretty advanced settings form that you can do a lot of things with this, but it's super easy to set up. You can set up how your fields concatenate, the case of the field that you're filling in for both full name and legacy street full names. You specify other key fields to NextGen down here. Address points are the same way. Very easy to set up. Concatenations are easy. You can specify the formats of your lat and long and your coordinates and key fields down here. This points to the master street name and how the master street name table interacts with the address points and the center lines. There's an additional development tool in here if you want to work with developments and address points. And please contact us with that if you have questions about that. There's a way, this is how you set up and specify how your unique IDs are assigned. And for a file geodatabase, I tend to use object ID. And finally, there are miscellaneous settings. And the most important of those is how your address ranges calculate. You can tell the tool to use a default here and also have a list of potential choices if you live in a jurisdiction where a town may use one calculation method while the county uses another. So that's my demo, and we'll switch back to the presentation. So this is our contact information. Our website is www.highlandmapping.com. You can contact Kent Rothrock for pricing and further information at the given information. And finally, if you have any questions about the presentation or NextGen in general, feel free to give me a call and contact me, and I'll be glad to help you however I can. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions that anyone may have.
All right. I have, can you hear me okay, Kevin?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. There was a question on, is there a way to put a large number of addresses by hand, for example, a new subdivision that already has all addresses assigned?
Not within the context of this tool, although that is something we're looking into because it is becoming a common thing. But since the tool is specific to where the driveway location is per address, that's more what it is targeted for.
Okay, another question is, do you have any history tracking for address changes built in?
We can set up editor tracking within the system and use it that way. Also, history could possibly be enabled within the geodatabase, although we have not had that discussion in the context of the tool yet.
Okay. All right. Those are, as of now, those are the only questions. Are there any other questions? You do have some great compliments saying great job, great tool. Another individual saying that they're currently working with you right now on this. So all positive feedback.
Thank you. And I will say too, to everyone watching this, if you do have very specific questions about this or would like to see more, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to arrange a demo and answer more in-depth questions.
Okay, here came another question. Do we have to use driveway points? We enter municipal addresses without a driveway point, but for the county, we use the driveway point to assign the address.
Yes, actually, you can do both. You can use the main tool to assign the addresses out in the county that have driveway points. But if you were within a city, you can use the manual assignment tool to manually input the name, or excuse me, the address, the house number, and then everything else fills in from the road center line. So yes, you can do that.
All right. And if anyone else has other questions, feel free to use the chat feature. I can keep Kevin on for a little bit longer until we get to our 11:30 mark. And then after that, I can keep the chat function and always relay these messages over. All right, Kevin. Well, it looks like at this point, I don't think we have any more questions. And again, if we do have some more come up, I will certainly pass them along over to you if
Thank you.
something happens by the time we get off the line. Just double checking one more time. He also, so Tim has one more question. Does the
Okay.
tool also check for parity? I hope I'm saying that correctly. We sometimes get updates from cities and have the wrong parity. Sometimes I catch them and other times I miss the parity issue. I think it's PARITY.
Yes. The tool does not check for parity. However, it recognizes parity when you address. But I will also say that we do have scripts that will go in and fix parity issues if needed. So you could reach out to us about that as well.
Perfect. Okay. That's probably it, Kevin. So again, if there are any other questions, I certainly will relay them if they come about before they end. And feel free to still use the chat function. And then otherwise, as Kevin said, you're welcome to follow up with him directly from his contact information that he has displayed now.
Well, I want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in, and thank you to Liz and the group for putting on an amazing conference. We're all really grateful.
Our pleasure. Thank you.